Roger Weiland here on a Monday morning. Baseball playoffs tomorrow. You got the one game wild card. Yankees will host the Minnesota Twins. Tim Kurkjian, ESPN baseball analyst, joins us for a few minutes here on Big Board Sports in Albany. Good morning, Tim.
How are you, Roger?
We are great, Tim. I got a lot of Yankee fans that are like, this one and done stuff, pretty nerve wracking, but I would think just looking at the history between these two teams and what has happened this year, that the Yankees should be in good shape with Luis Severino on the mound tomorrow. But I get it. There is something scary about these wild card games when it's only one game.
Yeah, and I would say this to every team. If you don't want to play in a one-game playoff, then just go win your division. That's not so easy to do when you're in the AL East, and the Yankees have had a remarkable season. I think they're at least 1 year ahead of schedule, and it's been so impressive what they've done. And I like their chances in a one-game series because Luis Severino is, after Corey Kluber and Chris Sale, probably the best starting pitcher in the league this year. And he's got 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 guys coming out of that bullpen that can strike out the side. Plus, he's got a lineup that is just really dynamic right now with those 2 guys in the middle and with a bunch of other guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. So I'm a Yankee fan. I'm nervous. I would be nervous if I were any team playing a one game or winner take all, but I really like where the Yankees are, and I think they're a very dangerous team.
Tim, does this go in the books as a great season for the Yankees no matter what happens tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think it does. When you really are honest with what they're doing here, they rebuilt the team the last few years, including this year, and they made the playoffs. Again, no other team rebuilds and stays relevant like the Yankees have. This is Brian Cashman at his best, and this is the Yankees at their best. And they can't be a bad team playing at Yankee Stadium and playing in New York. It just doesn't work that way with the rich history of the franchise. So they won't look at it as a success, but guys like me will look at it and say they're going to get a lot better from here. And to make the playoffs while they put this team back together, that's pretty impressive.
Tim, Chris Honorato here with Roger as well. I'm a Braves fan, a product of them being on TBS all those years. And they lost the one-game playoff, how many years ago now? A handful of years ago, it has to be, on the longest infield fly rule I have ever seen. And yet I'm not bitter about the one-game playoff. I know Joe Girardi has said he'd like to see it be 3 or 5 games. Where do you fall on what this wild card playoff format should be?
Well, first off, you still are bitter about that infield fly rule, as you should be. I think this is the only way to go. I love the Game 7 feel to October the 3rd. I think that's great. And I don't think there's another way to do it because to play 2 out of 3 really sets back teams that should be getting an advantage by winning their division. But what's happened in recent years with play-in games and with off days, teams get too many off days. Championship caliber teams that win their division, have too many off days. Baseball is a daily game. They're used to playing it every day for 5 months. And then suddenly they have 4 off days in a 6-day span. And it, they don't start the playoffs at all until 5 or 6 days after the season ends. That's not how baseball teams operate the best. So I think the only way to do it is a one-game playoff, and I like it that way.
Winner, of course, tomorrow goes to Cleveland on Thursday. Tim, what do you make of Boston's chances in the ALDS in Houston starting on Thursday in that series?
Well, it's going to be a great series. Those are 2 really good teams, and with the way Boston has put together its new bullpen with David Price and others, I like their chances to really make that a competitive series. I think I'll pick the Astros because that lineup is so good. But who knows? This could all come down to Game 1. Chris Sale against Justin Verlander. We're assuming those guys are going to pitch. And with as great as Verlander's been since he became an Astro, with as great as Sale has been pretty much all year, maybe we'll know everything we need to know in this series after Game 1. in the battle of the great aces, because after that, we're just not positive about the rest of the rotation for either one of those teams. So this might be decided by the aces, and if an ace can throw a gem in game one, that really gets a team off to a great start in a short series.
Tim, going back to July, I've been so looking forward to this postseason because it has, this year in Major League Baseball, kind of has an NBA feel to it. I feel like the really good teams in baseball are great. And yeah, there are some teams that aren't all that good. But when you're talking about the Dodgers and the Nationals and the Cubs, out of the National League, and then we've talked about the American League teams already, the ability for the playoff series here to go the distance, 5-7 games, and to see some really, really good teams. Do you remember, am I overstating this? Do you remember a postseason maybe that has had the feel that this one has in terms of teams being as great as they are?
You know, Chris, I can't think of one. I count 8 teams out of 10 that I think have a legitimate chance to win the World Series. 8 out of 10. And to me, that's what separates it from the NBA, is you look at certain seasons, including the last few, and you say, those 2 teams right there, they're playing in the finals. When we know that. Well, we don't know that in baseball. In fact, we have no idea how it's going to go in baseball, especially in this postseason, because of how good these teams are. And yet each team, maybe other than the Indians right now, has a little bit of a flaw. And if that flaw is exploited, those teams could get beaten. That's why this postseason especially has a chance to be great with that many good teams and so much mystery involving who's going to win and who's going to lose.
Hey, Tim, one more from me, and that's on Terry Collins. We have a lot of Met fans around here. And are you surprised, A, that he's not coming back as the manager? And then are you surprised that they actually have offered him a position in the front office?
Well, he should be offered a position with the job he did for that team. If he wants to stay with the Mets, he should be allowed to because of the work that he's done. I am not surprised that he's not coming back, because it just seemed to me that after that team made the playoffs 2 years in a row for only the second time in club history, and they made the playoffs last year with so many injuries and so many difficult circumstances, and Terry Collins did not get a contract extension after last year, I pretty much said, well, I'm not sure. I think his days might be numbered in New York. And then, of course, terrible year this year, not Terry Collins' fault. Terrible injuries again, lack of production again. And I don't blame them for moving on, but to blame him for this year and to not give him extraordinary credit for the 2 previous years, I think is not the right way to go.
Yeah, I thought he earned it. He said he wanted to manage for 2 more years. I thought that would have been the right thing for the Mets to allow him to manage for 2 more. Because it's certainly this year not his fault, but I am glad at least they're offering him a front office position, and I'm a big Terry Collins fan because he's been through a lot with that organization.
Absolutely, and it'll be very interesting to see what they do as far as their next manager goes. But it doesn't matter who their next manager is if they can't get that team back on the field healthy, which they simply haven't been able to do.
Tim, we appreciate a few minutes. Great work, as always, with ESPN, and we can't thank you enough for coming on Big Board Sports here for a few minutes this morning.
Okay, guys, see you.